fact that Donald Trump said that not only did he not get a chance to ever go through those boxes, but he still reiterated that he still had the power to declassify them nonetheless, and they were his presidential records. What's your reaction?
Well, I find it surreal that only a few hours ago he was the first former president to be arrested, charged with a multi-count indictment with serious allegations, and he's the coming home hero, and he turns this into a political speech, which is absolutely fine, and he's entitled to defend himself. But there were one or two things he said which, if I were his lawyer, I would really cringe at.
What were they?
I think Dan mentioned. Well, Dan mentioned that he said that something about the boxes. It was he hadn't had a chance to go through the boxes. He also said something else. He said that there was commingled personal stuff in the boxes, so he really wasn't able to separate out the personal stuff before he would return everything. The reason I would cringe at that is there's one thing missing in this very, very detailed factual indictment, and that is, why did he do it? What he did, if it's proved, was incredibly reckless. But why did he do it? And if I were his lawyer, I would not want him to say one darn word about that, because it can all be used against him. He's going to say these things, and then the government is going to turn around. They're going to play that for the jury, and then they're going to show with testimony and possibly texts or emails that it's false. Let him talk. He's entitled to defend himself. He's entitled to, if he wants to make himself the victim, he's entitled to do all of that stuff, but he just shouldn't talk about the case. But there's one thing, I don't know if anybody noticed. Twice he used the word the communists, and somehow he equated the Jack Smith as being the communists and Merrick Garland. Does that remind you of anybody? How about the documentary Where's My Roy Cohn? And everything Donald Trump knows, the playbook, comes from Roy Cohn. But there's one thing, Roy Cohn, I had some contact with him. Take no prisoners, go after anybody, make it personal. But one thing that happened with Roy Cohn, the feds, in fact, when I worked there, indicted Roy Cohn 3 different times on 3 different indictments, totally different crime and schemes. And guess what happened? What was not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. I have never heard of anybody indicted 3 times except for John Gotti, and who is not guilty on all. I think that emboldens Donald Trump. I think he's expecting the same thing's going to happen, and maybe it will.
Do you think in this case, when he talks, you know, if that speech was filled with examples of how everybody else did it too, and nobody else got charged or investigated for it, he is drawing a lot of analogies and sort of broad brush strokes that what I did and what I'm accused of doing is no different from what Hillary Clinton did or Bill Clinton did and Sandy Berger did. Do you see distinctions in those cases? Because he is trying to paint them all as the same.
No, I'm saying I would argue with what
well,
all
the
3
distinctions,
of them did was worse.
Representative, one second, Jon Sale, you go first, and then Congressman, you can go in after. Thank you.
The distinctions are a political discussion, but what I would do if I were on his defense team, which had the opportunity, but I declined, what I would do is I would say, how do I take this into a legal defense in a courtroom? And it would be in the form of a motion to dismiss the indictment based upon selective prosecution. But then I would have to really demonstrate that with facts, possibly with an evidentiary hearing, but that is a basis. It's very unusual, a very high burden, as for a motion to dismiss.
And very quickly, before I go on to Congressman, Jon Sale, why did you refuse the opportunity to represent former President Trump?
Well, what I said publicly, and I don't want to go into confidential conversations, was when I was offered the opportunity, I counted 12 DOJ lawyers working full-time on investigating President Trump. So it would have required me to do the same thing. And I have a busy law practice, and I have professional responsibilities to my clients, so I just wasn't in a position to do it. And I can say also it wasn't for me. But the first reason was what made it not doable.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.